Today I want to talk to you about book quality. I've been involved in the book printing work for a good few years, maybe 23 years. I've learnt a lot. Some I've learnt the hard way, some I've learnt just by experience. And I wanted to share this with you. So far we've been looking at things like the cover, how the cover should be, asking you for ideas. But today I wanted to share some thoughts about how the book should be. The first thing I would like to talk about is, what about the actual paper? Now there's so many things to take into account. We can't just look at these things in isolation. Paper. What is the easiest colour paper for people to read? I personally love a white paper. I just think it looks nice, but that's me. But I heard one friend say, which has been involved in the print industry, is that the cream coloured or the off-white paper is actually the easiest to read for the human eye and how long you can read a book. This book here is the more of a grey paper, and this is probably the second easiest to read. But I think also a white paper just makes it look a little bit more of a better quality book. So that's one thing to take into account, is the actual paper. The other thing to take into account is, pick up your book, brand new book, hold it open, and can you easily hold it open? Or do you need two hands to wrench it open, and then the spine ends up cracking and you've damaged the book? That's down to a few things. One of those is to make sure the print grain of the paper is running the correct way so the book can easily open. These simple things make it easier for the end reader to read the book. Also, based on that, what about the middle margin? Can you easily read the page, say at this angle? Or do you have to open it and look in the middle to see? That's something to think about, because you need a nice margin so you can easily see the center of the text. Too many times we become so enthusiastic, we go and buy books to give out, but we never read them ourselves. And Advent Books is looking to improve. We haven't brought up here in front of the camera books by other publishers, because we're happy to say where we need to improve, but we wouldn't want to offend anybody saying how they need to improve. The next thing is, and this is quite an interesting one, is the catch-22 scenario of printing, in this case the Great Controversy, or any big book. You don't want it really thick and chunky. It's harder to carry around. People get daunted by the size. But on the same reverse side of the argument is, you don't necessarily want it, so you've got to provide a free magnifying glass so people can read it. It's getting that balance between the font size. But based on that also is the thickness of the book. You see, if you're planning to put this through someone's letterbox, it needs to be not too thick so it can actually slide through. The other thing worth thinking about is, if you want to put this in a padded envelope and put it in the post, here in the United Kingdom, this is something worth thinking about. The thickness needs to be 16 or 17 millimeters, because then it can be classed as, I believe it's a large letter, but the name doesn't really matter, but it will cost £2 to post it. If it's a thick book, it will actually cost £3.20 to post it. So there is some wisdom in having a lot thinner book where possible. Also, one thing which is kind of obvious here, if you're giving out a book in the United Kingdom, make sure you've got an address printed inside the book in the United Kingdom. Or if you can't, you can always put a label inside, but just think how much time and effort that costs. So there's just a few simple things. You know, we could talk about what's the cover like, is it laminated, is it UV varnished, all the complicated things. But I want to keep this to a simple perspective for the normal person to be able to go out there and buy a book to give out. If you've got a stock of books which you think, maybe they're hard to read for whatever reason, it's still a good book. Let's get those books out there because God can still bless that work. And if you're using a different publisher, contact them and say, we want the book so it's easy to open. We want the book so it's thinner. We want the book however you feel the requirement is. But brothers and sisters, let's get the truth out to the people like the leaves of autumn before time runs out.